Yo, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy GZTV back with another video, and we are here with Huncho Jack Huncho, the collaborative album between Travis Scott and Quavo, and this is actually the first time I'm listening to it. I'm not going to make it a full-on video of me just like listening to the album and giving my reaction. I just wanted to give you guys a short, like 10 to 15 minute maybe little review of what my first listen was like. Going into it, I kind of heard it had some darker tones to it. It's not as vibrant as, the two artists' prior music. A Quavo and Travis project was needed at the time. They've been working together forever. They've been featured on each other's albums plenty of times. And for the time, this was a pretty hyped up album. The only features are other Migos members, which is fine considering this album came out during the prime of the Migos. Like this album kind of released during that time when the Migos were having kind of their heyday. The artwork seems fitting for the vibes of the record. So let's go track by track, and then I'm gonna give you guys a bit of like a review at the end, kind of my thoughts and overview. You guys get it. So they start the album off with track number 1, which is Modern Slavery, and it definitely has like this Kanye inspired take on it, with like the New Slaves track. They're kind of slaves to the lavish lifestyle, lots of metaphors drawing parallels between, modern day and historical slavery, which is kind of interesting. The beat's hard. Travis's melodies are great. Quavo's cadence, everything about the opening track is really good. And by the way, I don't know how long this video is going to be. This was a pretty casual listen. So let's get into the next track. So the next track number 2 is Black in Chinese. Kind of sounds crazy, but it is a South Side produced track, kind of talking about what females they prefer. It's got a very, mainstream trap sound. Kind of sounds like a Future track, if I'm going to be honest. On the chorus, I think Travis kind of employs that slob on my knob flow, which is, again, that sounds crazy as well, but it's got like that interpolation to it, and that's what it sounds like. Track 3 is Eye to Eye. This was a single that features Takeoff. They did like their Jimmy Fallon performance to this. This was like a heavily promoted single going into the album. So yeah, there's that. Takeoff is on this. Quavo and Travis are trying to show their chemistry on this song. Again, like I said earlier, these two have been working together for quite some time, so they're obviously going to have some chemistry on a record. They see eye to eye. Because they're both high and they can kind of like understand each other. They both have like similar perceptions, and that's kind of an interesting concept to have on a song. But anyways, track number 4 is Motorcycle Patches, and this is Travis Scott's favorite song on the album, and we will talk about Quavo's favorite track on the album later on, because each of them have announced what track on the album they like the most, which is kind of interesting. And Travis has every right to say this is his favorite track, because this is hard. This song is amazing. This is one of the best songs on the record. Dope beat, interesting vibe. The song has, mainstream appeal. The hook's flow is very similar to a lot of flows that we've seen Travis kind of try out in the past. So yeah, Motorcycle Patches is an absolute hit on this album. The next track is Huncho Jack. The synths are amazing on this. It's definitely a standout. This is definitely another really good track on here. Huncho Jack and Motorcycle Patches, that's a really good track run on here. Murda Beats killed it, no pun intended, because his name is Murda Beats. And by the way, Murda Beats you can hear his tag. Obviously, he's involved in a lot of production on the record, and I think that's pretty interesting. Maybe, Murda Beats had quite the fucking field day with this album, and he has a lot of credits as well as like Q Beats and guys like that. So moving on to, I think, track number 6 is Saint. It's got like this braggadocious vibe. I mean, the album kind of has typical topics involved, the lavish lifestyle, doing drugs, driving cars, buying designer clothes. That's more like a Quavo thing. Obviously Travis has done it in the past in his discography, but that was definitely inspired by Quavo. Obviously when you listen to like Travis Scott music, it's very like sonically involved, but yeah, the Uber Everywhere hook is dope. It kind of reminds you of that era, kind of has some nostalgia with it. Yeah, the hook is great. That interpolation of the Uber Everywhere was done very successfully and executed very well on here. Next track is Go. They used a beat from an unreleased Uzi track on here. And that beat is insane. I've heard that leak of Uzi, but I'm not sure they really did much with it. I didn't really like the rapping. I didn't really like the hook or anything on that. But I mean, the beat kind of keeps you inclined, kind of keeps you into the track. So there you have it. Dubai Shit. The next track, probably the most iconic song on here, and the song that a lot of people are going to be taking from this project. There's the hidden Young Lean feature kind of singing in the background to start. That's cool because him and Travis Scott kind of came up together back in 2014. Obviously, like that Dubai lifestyle, that lavish lifestyle that we've been talking about so much, and these two artists have talked so much in their discographies. This is the last feature on the album. Offset's on here. He's not too involved, but he does his job and gets out. It'd be hard. It's hard for any track on here to really beat this. I mean, I have a couple in mind, like I said earlier, with like motorcycle patches, but I think this is without a doubt the best track on here. Moving on to Saint Laurent Mask. This is what Quavo said was his personal favorite off the album. And Travis has worked with YSL, so this is obviously an interesting title. He's had collabs, he's referenced them many times. Obviously, with the title like that, this is going to be just another flex track from the rappers. I mean, there's not really lyrical substance. Don't go into this thinking you're going to get some crazy ass stuff with it, because you're really not. I mean, this album isn't super impressive. That's kind of, if you guys want my review right now, this album isn't all that impressive. It's just got some bops on it, and we kind of move on from there. And I knew this was a Buddha beat. The second it started, I was like, yeah, this is a Buddha beat. I don't know what his full producer name is, but obviously Buddha blessed this beat. I knew it was his. The one thing I will say about Saint Laurent Mask is I did like how they each had multiple short verses, so it kind of sounded like they were bouncing ideas, bouncing bars off each other. I think that was really cool. Not a terrible song. Getting into the next one, Moon Rock. A very weed-inspired track. This is like the weed anthem on the album. There's some pretty awkward flows, but the beat is pretty cool on that one. The last like 5 tracks, maybe 4 tracks, 3 tracks or so, I didn't really have much to say. So How You Feel, it uses this Japanese sample. It has a very spacious vibe, spacey. Kind of like reminds you of a track off of Astroworld. There's just so much room to really spit on this thing. Anyway, that sounded weird. Pause. The next track is Where You From. It's talking about gangs. Now, I know these rappers aren't really affiliated with any gangs, but they kind of take a moment to make like a gang anthem on the album. Andre 3 Stacks is on the intro. I don't think really anyone knows that, but very faint in the background. So that's a cool little touch. Best Man is the final track. It's kind of a thank you, an ode to each other and their fans. It's got really positive vibes. They're very like generous to each other on this record. But yeah, that's the track by track. I mean, I know this is going to be kind of short, but I don't really have much to say. We'll get into the overview of the album. So I'm just going to give a couple of my thoughts, a little bit of the album overview before we get out of here. The album is only like 42 minutes, so it's not like, not only, I guess that is a pretty lengthy bit of music, but I'm not going to sit here and talk about this for 20 minutes straight, because I really don't need to. This album is definitely slept on each of the artists' discography, and it's not really meant to be a conceptual album, like I said earlier. It's kind of supposed to be a casual listen. And Quavo, I think Quavo did the best on this album. As much as I like Travis Scott, and as much as Travis Scott is probably my favorite artist out of the two, I think Quavo had the better parts. He had the better flows. Travis Scott obviously is there for melodies, and he has the auto-tune and all that. But Quavo really brought some energy on the verses, and that's really something that a lot of Migos members were known for. Especially like Offset and Takeoff, R.I.P. to Takeoff. And this is honestly perfect, because Quavo's supposedly dropping his album, I think, next week. Next week's going to be a pretty big week for music. I'm going to have to pick between him and Trippie Redd. The mixing is very weird on this album. I'm not really sure if that's done on purpose for like experimental purposes. You guys can let me know in the comments. And by the end of this album, I'm not gonna lie, like the last stretch is really fucking boring, because it seems kind of redundant. A lot of the tracks kind of sound the same, they have the same flows, they have the same type of melodies. I'm not really hating on this album at all. It's just not something I can see myself returning to too much in the future. It was definitely cool though. For a first listen, I'm just not sure how much re-listen value it has. So yeah, it's still a very underrated album though, even even with how kind of like bland it gets by the end of it. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. As always, it has been Cheesy TV, covering your favorite music. Utopia is supposedly dropping this week. We have one more Travis video coming out tomorrow, and that is me predicting my expectations, all that stuff for the album. So, I'm out, guys.